This is Target Score Weekly with Joey Slattery and Taylor Allen. Welcome into another edition of Target Score Weekly. I'm Joey Slattery. That's Taylor Allen. Some big news coming out of the Sea-Bears today. This is recorded on Monday, June 17th, a day that a lot of people remember in Sea-Bears Nation, the day that the Sea-Bears released reigning CEBL MVP and now undoubtedly the star of this team since its inception, Teddy Allen. There was a press conference today with Mike Taylor, head coach and GM. Jason Smith, the president of the Sea-Bears, spoke on it as well. Definitely came as a shock in terms of the kind of knew things were bad, but didn't think it was to the point where they were ready to release Teddy Allen. Taylor, your initial reactions to this, you were at the game yesterday as well. The Father's Day game against Edmonton, another loss, the fourth straight for the Sea-Bears. You hear the news this morning. What are you thinking?
Joey, I honestly don't even know where to start. Like, this is a very complicated story. It's not just for basketball reasons. It's not just for off the court reasons. I mean, there's a lot that went into this decision. I mean, obviously, it's the reigning MVP. You don't see a player of that caliber get released every day. But I mean, watching the game yesterday, my biggest takeaway was this team is broken. No one looks like they're having a good time. The players are bickering. They're fighting with each other. They're fighting with fans even. You know, Byron Mullins had an altercation with some fans sitting courtside and they got kicked out. Teddy's going after the ref for half of the game. They're playing a very, very ugly brand of basketball. They're not a team. They're a bunch of individuals right now. They're not playing defense. They're lazy on the boards, and their offense is basically just Teddy trying to dribble around five guys and then shooting up a contested three. And he actually shot pretty well yesterday, but I mean, that's not going to be sustainable, trying to create your shot like that. Or Justin Wright Foreman basically doing the exact same thing while everyone else, despite the fact that this team has lots of good scorers, they're not being utilized, and that'd be really frustrating. But I mean, back to Teddy though, I mean, he's just been causing too many problems with this team, right? I mean, Mike Taylor spoke about it today. So my initial reaction was shock, but then after it sets in and then you kind of talk to some people and you hear what Mike Taylor has to say, it's still hard to kind of wrap your mind around. But moving forward, as crazy as it might sound, this is probably the best thing that the Sea-Bears could have done. So there's still 12 games left. They can still salvage their season, but they had to make a big move. And we're going to see as early as this week whether Teddy was the issue or not.
And, there's a lot of, conversation in terms of what I've seen on, some of the comments on the Instagram reels and, even just messages coming in, from people messaging me that, there's people that are on Team Teddy, on Team Sea-Bears, whatever it is. But it's definitely seemed today during that press conference, like there was a genuine sense I felt of disappointment coming from Mike Taylor when he was sharing this news. And, he was very candid as can be, I guess. There were certain details they weren't going to get into, but, talking about some of the issues, and it, appears to be some on court and some off court, maybe a lot of off court stuff. And there was clearly an imbalance with the, the chemistry in that team. And how they were playing, and it all kind of boiled over on that Father's Day game, right? When you, like you said, you're seeing the altercations on the bench, a lot of bickering, a lot of yelling, a lot of times where even just from the sideline you can hear there's miscommunication. Two players have two different ideas of what's going on at the time. Teddy and Byron, they had a little bit of a tiff in there as well, and
I wouldn't say a little bit. That was a pretty big tiff. Those two.
Yeah, it was very,
Seem to
very
have.
visible. Yeah, no, for sure. And but they, and it just seems that, at the time, if you're looking at it, it's like it's heated. It's that time it's a heat of the moment, you're in the game or whatever, but clearly this is something that's been boiling over, and through over and over, Mike Taylor was saying during that interview, or during that scrum, I should say, was he tried everything, to get this to work. And I think the hard part is that everybody loves Teddy, right? Like in terms of the fan base, like Teddy was the face. He's literally hanging off Canada Life Center as the face of the Sea Bears beside all the Winnipeg Jets. And I think there's a confliction. Like it happened a lot of this in closed doors. I mean, I had no inkling that a cut was coming, that he was going to be released. It was a shock to everybody. He currently leads the league in scoring. There's a lot of things that would lead you to believe that this isn't a guy that needs to be cut, but and there wasn't a lot of time to process it. Right. So I think everybody has a right to feel whatever it is you're feeling right now: confusion, anger, sadness, disappointment, you name it. But I will say, getting to know Teddy and talking to Teddy, he genuinely loved being a Winnipeg Sea Bear, and he genuinely loved the city. And I think that's what makes this hard on people. I think people felt that too. I think there was a sense of home for Teddy, a team he came back to. And you look at his track record, which might even leave a little trail of things that happened here. But he doesn't return to teams very often. And him and Mike Taylor were very close. They had a great relationship up until this point. And, even in the offseason, there was a genuine sense of excitement. And, you know, uh, Mike Taylor, even other players talked about this being Teddy's team. Justin Wright Foreman came in here. One of the things he said in his press con or his opening interview was, "I understand this is Teddy's team," and just a matter of, was it Teddy's team in the sense that he had an idea of what Teddy's team is, and was it deferring from what the team's version of Teddy's team was? Was there a lesson to be learned there that maybe it's not in the best interest to put that kind of title on a player? You're trying to bump up your star and boost up your star, but it appears to have backfired, and that's one of the weird things. His stats pop. He scores a lot, and he does a lot of really good things for the Sea Bears on a nightly basis. I think the big thing is the overall goal for the team is to win a championship. And I think the idea was that Teddy's going to be the guy that's going to lead the charge, right? He's going to hit the big shots, but everybody else is going to get a touch, right? Like the idea is that the efficiency of Teddy goes up, his shots are better, he's getting the shots he wants, and he's hitting those shots. And he was hitting a lot of shots. Again, the last game he had was 39 points, but the team is on a 4-game losing streak, and they are now 3-5 on the year, which doesn't sound terrible, but they are in last place in the West. And if they have not beat a team in the West. They're 0-4 playing Western Conference teams, and it sounds like it wasn't just a X's and O's issue, and they took uh, major action in terms of releasing Teddy, and it sends a message that no one's above the team. I think that's the one thing I did like about the messaging was, this is a team that is established now. It's been here. It's its second year. It has expectations, and you can be a star here, and they will cater to that. And you can be a star and have everything that comes with it until it starts costing the team. And I think here is a classic example of that. It was just the guy's stats were off the chart, but there clearly was some meshing issues there. And it's too bad because I do think it was a really good marriage for a long time, mainly last year in terms of what he was able to do in terms of drumming up excitement for this team, becoming a fan favorite. But it just came to an unfortunate end. And I think it more than unfortunate, just shocking. At this point of the season, it's still pretty early, but leads you to believe that the issues had to be big enough if they weren't willing to ride it out. And this is a team that is built to win now, and I think that is still the case. And I think that is one of the big things they're saying here is we're making major action to push this thing forward. It'll be interesting to see that game against Vancouver on Wednesday, what that first game of the post Teddy era will look like. And we'll get into that too. But yeah, I think that's the toughest part for fans is just Teddy was the guy and openly the guy. The team pushed him as the guy, and now it's been taken away, and there's a lot of confusion as to that. So now it's on the team to say, okay, we got to go on a win streak here and prove that this was where we needed to make the change. So there is a little bit more pressure on them now beyond the fact that they're way behind the 8 ball in the Western Conference.
I think it's a sad story, if I'm being honest. I mean, last year, this city fully embraced Teddy. He fully embraced this city, and everyone in Winnipeg was really rooting for him to get that NBA opportunity, right? But now you look at what happened, and you look at what kind of his background is, right? Like some of the things that have happened to him in other stops too. I can't see an NBA team wanting to give him a look, especially after this. It was already an uphill climb for him, considering he was at so many different NCAA schools, and there was various different reasons for that. But I think this kind of might potentially kind of put the final nail into his NBA dreams. Sadly, which is really sad because we know he has the talent to be an NBA guy, but for whatever reason, just things aren't working out, and that's probably not gonna happen. So it really is sad. And Teddy's been really good to you and I, and to this show. He's
Mhm.
come on the show 2 or 3 times, been really gracious with his time, even when he was in Leicester playing in England. Came on the show. Always been happy to do interviews with us and whatever. And he's been a real class act to us. And I've seen so many fans have similar experiences where Teddy went out of his way to, sign a kid's jersey or take a picture with them and whatever. So that side of Teddy, like I think he is a good person for sure. So I think that's why a lot of people are kind of confused by this. Like, what do you mean he's causing issues in the locker room and behind the scenes and whatever? Because out in the open, people have seen a lot of good things from him. Yes, he
Yeah.
has been kicked out of some games, and you have seen him get mad at teammates and stuff and whatever. But I think people have seen a lot of good out of him as well. So it's just a complicated story, and Teddy's a complicated individual. Like if I did a big feature on him last year talking about lots of things that have happened in his life. I mean, he grew up with an abusive dad. His mom, who was like his person, right? She died from cancer when he was still in high school. He was at a at risk youth center for a couple of years growing up as well, and then like I said, bounced around so many different NCAA schools. I mean, like this is a guy who's been through a lot of things in his life, and not many people would be able to overcome some of those things. So the fact that he's been able to do that to become the player that he is today really says something. But yeah, hopefully he figures out whatever it is that he needs to figure out, because um, it'd be great to see him land on his feet somewhere. Hopefully he does. I mean, he's a guy who could drop 30 plus points any given night, right? So I'm sure he will. But yeah, I just think one of my main kind of feelings about this is just it's a sad story, right? Because I mean,
Yeah.
Teddy is someone who has really made an effort, right, to really kind of turn the page and say, hey, that stuff that happened in the past and my previous stops, that's not me anymore. I want to leave that in the past. Like he was kind of nervous about me running that feature on him, to be honest, because he's like, I want people to stop focusing on that crap. Like that's in the past. Like I'm a different person now and whatever. So now that this happened, it's kind of like, oh, that's same old Teddy. So, which I don't know if that's fair or not because we don't know all the details, right? But yeah,
And
more.
there is a human aspect to it, like a human element to it, like you're saying, right? It's, the basketball is one thing, but these are people, right? And these are careers and jobs. And this was a really good opportunity. And, that's the weird part, right? Because, like you say, that like going back as far as your feature and how everything appeared, like the optics of it was Teddy was on the up and up. He, kind of saved his career in Winnipeg. And it looked like there might be a chance that he gets a call up, right? And we talked about it last year too in terms of his skill. Like we talk so much about his scoring, but last year, especially like defensively, he was great. Even early this year when they were winning, like, some big rebounds, the big assist to Alex Campbell for his, 1000th point and stuff like that. Like there are moments where it's like, he was playing that role, but then something on that road trip happened from the time he got those two technicals in Niagara that the dominoes just fell to an extent that I don't think anybody was expecting. Like when you're giving up 3 straight games of 100 points, right? Almost 100 points in 4 straight games. Edmonton had 97 yesterday. Yeah, you can score, but can't outscore teams all the time. And clearly that's been a thing, right? So I think the human element is what makes it tough, is because he was a guy to root for in a lot of ways. And I talked about this on Winnipeg Sports Talk earlier today. He kind of embodies a lot of things that Winnipeggers like in an athlete, a guy that had a comeback story, right? A talented guy that had been overlooked and was trying to, prove people wrong and having success, showing love to the city. And you heard him when he was in Leicester. He was like, "Yeah, this place kind of isn't great." He's like, "I can't wait to come back to Winnipeg." And all we ever hear as Winnipeggers is like the opposite. Yeah, we're usually the Leicester in that situation. So it's I think that's a lot of things that people are going to have a hard time with in terms of just dealing with it. But winning solves a lot of stuff, right? Like this will eventually be water under the bridge, and if you go on a bit of a heater. And win the next couple of games. You have your next 4 games are at home. If you go on a 3-4 game win streak, changes everything because now you're got a winning record. You'll have even the ground with a few of the Western teams. But you got to win, and that's the big thing now. So the pressure's still there.
I saw
And just
nothing,
to,
like, Joey, I saw nothing on Sunday that suggests this team is capable of going on a heater and winning the next 3 or 4 in a row.
and
Like I said
you're
before,
totally right.
this team is broken, man. Like I brought my this is my I was happened to be off work yesterday, so I'm like, hey, I'll bring my dad. He's never been to a Sea Bears game. And we both just sat there with our arms crossed and heads shaking for half the game because it was just an absolutely disgusting display of basketball. I know the score doesn't look that bad, but
Well,
I
they made a
seriously
lot
hope.
of the score, like, we even talked about that in the post game show, was like the score was a 10-point game, but it didn't feel like a 10-point game.
No,
Like,
they
it
got their
felt like a
asses kicked.
25-30 point, yeah.
Absolutely. And I seriously hope, and I'm not trying to be a smartass, but I seriously hope all the dads in attendance at that game looked at their son, looked at their daughter, and said, "Hey, you see what the Sea Bears are doing out there? Do not play basketball like that. Do not be an asshole to your teammates. Actually pass the ball. Actually try on defense. Actually try to grab a 50-50 ball, a rebound." It was pathetic, man. It really, really, really was. Like this city can handle a losing team. The city has a lot of experience handling losing teams, right? But this city will not embrace a team that doesn't try their hardest, doesn't get along well with each other, and are playing like a bunch of jerks. So it really was a not a pretty game. And we've talked, right, this whole offseason, even up to this point, we've praised all these moves that the Sea Bears made. Wow, they have so much talent, twice as much talent as they did last year. But we'd always ended by saying, but there's only one basketball, and a lot of guys are going to have to kind of check their egos for this to really work. We always kind of slid that in there. And we're finding out that's what's actually biting them, right? Like, again, this team has way more talent than last year, but so many guys had to accept lesser roles and be okay with it. And it's fair to say through 8 games, that is far from the case, and it's showing on the court. So who knows? Maybe without Teddy, everything will be fine and dandy after that, but I highly doubt it because this team seems fractured.
High risk, high reward, right, with these signings, and, we always kind of think or assume that that reward will come, but it was a risk. And I think, Mike Taylor knew that too. You're bringing in a lot of stars and there's a lot of potential there. I genuinely think there was excitement of pairing Teddy with Justin Wright Foreman.
Don't even get me
And
started on
unfortunately,
that.
well, we can get to that in
Don't
a
even get
second.
me started on
The
that.
but we didn't even get a chance to see it like pan out. It ended almost as soon as it started. And part of me, thinks like if this was something that was building up, is that part of the reason why Justin Ray Foreman was even more attractive to sign, losing that American spot where it's if it works out great, awesome. We've got two of the top scoring guards on the floor together and working in harmony. But also if the Teddy thing was growing and it was like, well, at least we have a guard now. And one of the things was this has been a congested guard situation, right? I mean, the other game, the Jared Ogunbemi Jackson didn't even dress last game, but the game before that, he only
With a
had
back
7 minutes.
injury.
It was sorry, yeah, it was an injury, but the game before that, he only had 7 minutes, and the game before that, he had what, like 24 points or whatever it was. Like, it kind of seemed like once Wright Foreman came in, he took a lot of the playing time, which was expected. But there's other players too, where it's like you can't play them all at once, let alone the ball. There's only 5 spots on the floor, right? And, and there's only a front court and a back court, and Jared Ongabemi Jackson's not a guy that's going to step in and play small forward. It's
But
That's the problem.
yeah, but on that, Joey, sorry to interrupt you.
It's
I
okay.
mean, Jared's a guy that they have heavily, heavily, heavily recruited for
Mhm.
well over a year. Jared is a guy that this every team in this league has wanted since day one, and he hasn't been interested because he puts a lot of time and effort and energy, obviously, into his career overseas, and rightfully so. But he kind of finally made an exception this summer because he thought it'd be an amazing opportunity to play at home in front of his family and loved ones, which he hasn't had the chance to do in like over a decade. So here he is. You bring him in. You probably promise him the world, and he's playing really well. He's playing really, really, really well. And then you sign a guy at his position and basically knock him out of the starting rotation. How do you think that's going to go over in the locker room? Yes, I know on paper, oh, Justin Wright Foreman averages 30 points per game. We can sign him. Let's do it. But how do you think a move like that is going to go over in the locker room? If Jared handled that well, I don't know. I don't have any insight on that. But me personally, I would be really pissed off. So if he is, I don't blame him whatsoever. Because and then you watch how this team has looked since they picked up Justin Wright Foreman. It's been a disaster, absolute disaster. And I thought the way Justin Wright Foreman played yesterday was atrocious. Right,
Yeah.
the turnovers, his body language. I saw him flip out on Mason Bercier. He was a jerk to his teammates, right? And he's playing by himself out there, right? Like it was very him and Teddy. It was just two individuals, and that shit's not going to fly at any level, especially a level like this. So but who knows? Maybe now with Teddy out of the picture and Justin Wright Foreman will be the go-to guy the whole time, then maybe things will be a bit better. But what I saw from him yesterday was not good. And again, I know it sounds crazy. Like this is a guy who almost won MVP last year to Teddy Allen. He was the runner-up. But
Well,
man,
you when
that
you
game was frustrating to watch. I'm just getting heated just talking about it, man. Like some of these turnovers that Wright Foreman had, right? He would drive to the basket, he'd leave his feet and throw a terrible pass that was easily intercepted and then taken the other way for an easy layup. And he wouldn't say, "Oh, my bad, guys." He'd throw his arms up like he'd blame his teammates. And he did this two or three times, I think, in the first half alone. And those are terrible passes that you shouldn't make at any level. So I don't know, man. Is that a guy that people are going to run through a wall to play for? From what I saw yesterday and his first, or his first game as well, I wouldn't bet on it. But again, let's let's wait to see how things look now that Teddy's not in the picture. Maybe tensions were extra high. Maybe they won't be as high anymore. But Justin Wright Foreman, I think he kind of needs to do a lot better job moving forward, especially if he is going to be the go-to guy, which he kind of has to be now.
well, I like I'll say this: it can't be easy coming into a team that's already kind of on a downward spiral. They were what would have
Good point.
won.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think they were either 500 or maybe a game below 500 when he started. And it's going to take some time to gel, and we even talked about that with David Wencat. Like he came in and played stellar to start, but that was commendable. Like it's hard to come into a new system, fresh off a season. And, Justin left the team to come here. Totally get it. It seems like there was already things that were happening within the team that he's coming in on a bad situation as well. So I'm going to give him time. I'm not going to base anything on him, from the 3 games prior, but depending on how the next 3 games go, right? Because at the end of the day, you don't have time, and that's just the reality of this league. And you knew that when you signed up, that results have to come immediately. I mean, in 3 games, and again, 3 games compared to everybody else playing 8, he's the third leading scorer in the league. Like,
That
through
doesn't mean
3 games.
anything.
No,
Who
no,
cares?
no,
Who
no,
gives
no.
a shit how many points you're
It,
scoring? They
no,
play.
no.
They look like trash on offense. Have they ran a single play? Like seriously, their
But
entire
here's what
offense
I'm
is just
saying
him
though,
or Teddy just dribbling around, taking a contested shot. I don't give a damn
which
how many
that's
points he scored.
but
I
that's
don't give a
both how
shit.
they play. That's exactly what you're bringing in. So now you're right, but bringing in a guy in for scoring, and he was sharing the floor with Teddy. You were getting it from both. He was averaging 25.5 points through 3 games. So you're getting the scoring, but it's not leading to wins. So this is actually speaking to your point. So he's coming in and he's getting the points, but no one else is able to contribute at that level. It's taking shots away. The volume of shots is high as well. And it's burning them on defense because they are getting burned so hard on transition defense in these past few games. Actually, Edmonton was one where I was shocked. There wasn't as many transition points as there were the 2 games prior to it. But Edmonton was a team that is very set in their ways, a team that was built over time as well. They've got some returning players. They put some nice key pieces in there, and they know what they're good at. Their 3-point range isn't where they're highlighting their game. They're taking and pounding it inside and taking those 2 points in the paint over and over and over again, and not allowing you to score in transition either. So now Teddy's gone. So Justin's going to get his shots because now there's X amount of field goals that are going to be open for people to take. Now, is it going to be him taking the good ones and finding his teammates for better ones? Are you going to see him move over to the wing and allow Jared back at the point guard position, which I think would be beneficial? He's better at taking care of the ball. He's one of the league leader in assists. So give him the ball, put him in a situation where he can feed these guys. I would thought I'd see more Jared, Teddy, Justin on the court than I did. Not to say that Alex Campbell shouldn't be a starter. I understand the value that Alex brings as well, particularly defensively, which we've come to learn with those two guys. More turnovers, therefore you need to have a defensive presence, but it wasn't enough. So now it's a matter of, can Justin play as hard on the defensive end? Can he take care of the ball when he has it? Or can we take the ball away from him to, in terms of getting the play set up and find him in his spots and see if we can amplify that. But he's come in and he's done exactly what he's advertised to do, is score. There's no one in here that said like, oh no, he's great at taking care of the ball, he's an incredible defensive player. No, it was the leading scorer from last year, that is the scoring champion. You bring in the scoring champion and he comes in and he gives you 25 points a night. That, to me, based on what he's brought in at, is a good output. But
He
is
turned
it
the
a
ball
good out
over 7 times.
100%. And Teddy was
7
turning him over
times.
left, right, and center as well. He had a 6 turnover game the night before. That's what I'm saying, is you got the scorers. The volume of shots to get the points they're getting are high, and the ball is not being protected. So if you're getting 25 points and you have 7 turnovers and that leads to 2-point field goals every time, that's not a great differential, right? That's an 11-point differential, and there's probably a few 3-pointers in there and ones, whatever, right? So I don't know what the actual ratio is exactly for that particular player, but you've got the scorer. He's come in to do what he has to do, but how does that implement the team? And that's where the pressure now falls on Mike Taylor to get these guys to buy into the system. And was it really a Teddy thing? Was that the nucleus of this whole issue, or is it deeper? And we're going to find out, because it starts on Wednesday, where they're going to play without Teddy for the first time. We saw in Niagara, when Teddy got the 2 technicals, the team did seem to get stronger as the game went on, playing in what that system should be, but it wasn't enough. So now, can you do it on a nightly basis? Come back to that and have a game where you have that system that you're looking for, where everybody's getting their spots and you're taking care of things defensively. A lot of it is an energy thing. Are they going to bring that energy? And are there going to be more broader shoulders, more focused faces, and guys that aren't just throwing their hands up every time there's a missed call or missed assignment or yelling at each other? You made a big move. The message should be delivered. Will it be accepted and will it show on the court? We'll find out. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it pans out.
Well, Edmonton had 6 players score in double figures, and their
Mm.
highest scorer, Brody Clark, had 17 points.
Not even
Where
a
you look at the
20-point star.
C
Exactly.
where you look
Yep.
at the Sea Bears, Teddy had 39, Justin Wright Foreman had 22, and their next highest scorer was Emmanuel Acott with 7. And by
Yep.
the way, Emmanuel Acott, I thought he was awesome. I think that was a really good pickup. I think he should be playing more moving forward. But
That I think he will.
yeah, no, for sure. So that just goes to show like the way Edmonton plays. They play as a team. Like every basket they score just looks so easy and fluid and ball movement. Where the Sea Bears, every basket they score just looks so hard, right? Just nothing came easy because they don't make it easy on themselves. And the way I look at Justin Wright Foreman, bringing him in again on paper, you'd be crazy not to sign a guy like that. But it'd kind of be like pairing up Luka Doncic with James Harden, I feel like. Two of the best scorers in basketball history, right? Those two guys,
Mhm.
not Teddy and Justin. Two of the best scorers in basketball history, but two guys who need the ball in their hands, two guys who need a lot of volume to do what they do, right?
Mhm.
It would
And
not work
that's
out well with those two guys. And I feel Mike Taylor, I feel like he should have known that Teddy and Justin, that pairing was not going to work out well. And we only saw it for a couple of games. And who knows, maybe if they had the full training camp and whatever, it would
it's
have been
also a
great.
buy-in,
I
right?
just
Like,
feel
you
like he
need.
should have known that wasn't gonna work. But then again, I think you kind of mentioned earlier, maybe he kind of saw the writing on the wall with Teddy. And it's like, okay, well, if we're gonna lose this 30-point per game score any day now, unless things get better, we should probably pick up Justin Wright Foreman. So if that was the case, then kudos to him. But I'm struggling to wrap my mind around how he could have thought that was going to work with those two guys on the court at the same time.
Well, look at the NBA, right? Like the super team era that has been the last what, like basically since the Celtics big three is really when that kind of became a thing of signing stars, and then it was just stockpiling whatever stars you can, and guys trying to build their own teams and stuff like that. And it's kind of like was this your app, or your eyes were bigger than your stomach, right? Like you had all these options and you got all the best ones, and but they don't fit in the puzzle, right? So you've got all the best pieces, but you can't put them together. And maybe that is part of it as well. Because at the end of the day, if it did work out, then he looks like a genius, right? Like, you got the two best scorers. How did you do that? And their numbers didn't go down, and the team's winning. But unfortunately, that's not what happened. And I don't know if all of it is just what's happening on the court and cohesion, right? That's what was alluded to today. There seemed to be some issues off the court that have been affecting the team, becoming distractions, as Mike Taylor put it. So now you can put all that aside, and this is legit a fresh start. This is rock bottom. When you have to cut your reigning MVP, leading scorer in the league to this day, after the record that you have, like there's no lower than you can go. So now it's, can you start making the climb back up? Because there is time left. Losing 4 games in this league is hard. That is like a near death sentence to go 0-4 at any point in the season. But the nice thing about this part of the season is you've got some time, but you really have to win out essentially at this point, to maybe not win out, but you have a very small margin. Last year, what, they had 5 losses total, right? So you start looking at the record, you're like, oh, well, in order to finish like we did last year, we do have to win out every game. So it's going to be an uphill battle for sure. The message has been sent, and it starts Wednesday with a really hard schedule. You've got Vancouver that you've lost to, you've got Saskatchewan that you've lost to, you've got Niagara that you've lost to, and you've got Edmonton who you've lost to. So all of these teams have an edge on you already, up 1-0 in the season series. So the Niagara one, I'm not worried about as much because there's no real head-to-head issues with it. But that game is now important because you need to win it just to keep in that playoff picture and give yourself a shot at going to the postseason. But they really put themselves behind the 8 ball. The reward wasn't there. And now it's, how does this team look? And I want to look at that now too. How does this team look? They have an open American spot. So are they going to go out and find an American to fill this spot? Or are they going to move forward with the team they have? And Mike Taylor said there has been contact with American players that have been on the radar and stuff like that. So we'll see how that pans out. But I, part of me thinks, and I'm being an optimist for sure, now that you have that, one big star, a lot of ball handling, a lot of shot volume out of the way, it kind of decongest the guard situation a little bit. Mason Bercier has been playing really well through all this. I think Chad's been playing very efficiently when he's been on the floor as well. Last night, maybe not the best game he's had, but before that, he's been playing pretty well. But now you're allowing more time for Mason without taking time away from anybody. Jared Ogunbemi Jackson, I would have to imagine, is back starting the next game he's available, and he can do what he does best, which is take care of the ball, facilitate, and he still has a lot of options. I mean, there were times where, I remember 1-2 screens where Teddy's going around Byron and just stops. And there was confusion as to why are you stopping while our hips are still touching? And it was a turnover. Another one happened where he tried a behind the back pass to Byron, who still had his hands up, kind of taking the screen, which ended up being an interception going the other way for 2 points. So there's been miscommunications that might be fixed, right? And we might see better play out of Byron. We might see better play out of guys like even Simon Hildebrand, David Mwenkat, like these guys that have been, kind of, Mwenkat started pretty strongly, but as we saw, this isn't a knock on him. This is the whole team. It stalled. You saw yesterday. The offense was all over the place, did not look good. There were all the timeouts were used early because they were trying to figure it out in the game. But this has been games worth of this. So now it's tough, but I think there is an opportunity here. Now you might learn that just playing that team game, putting people in their strengths, there's a chance to turn this around. And Jared Ogunbemi Jackson played really good basketball when he was on, especially when Teddy was gone. So you have a guy that can step up, that has stepped up and has experience, not in this league particularly, but an experienced pro.
Well, they went 12-8 last year, so the season's not over yet. But like you said, they really don't have much wiggle room. Like, there's not a lot of room for error. But speaking of Byron Mullins, though, I think it's important to note that yesterday was a tough game for him. 4 points, and you know didn't really make much of an impact. And I kind of talked about it a little earlier, but there was 2 fans sitting courtside who were chirping him, giving it to him pretty good. And Byron did not take to that very well. There was one point where it looked like he wanted to even fight those guys. I mean, he didn't, but he got held back by a teammate and whatever. And I mean, but it was Father's Day, right? And Byron's son was sitting courtside, right? So imagine that, like these two guys, they're mouthing off at you, and they're Seabears fans, and they're mouthing off at you. And yeah, you're not having a great game, so you're already frustrated because of that. And then your son's sitting courtside, so that's kind of makes it embarrassing and not cool even more, and whatever. So then those fans get kicked out, and then Byron didn't really play down the stretch, and then he had his issue with Teddy, and there's been some speculation as to what happened there and whatnot. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Byron puts Sunday's game behind him as well. Because if this team is going to figure it out, they need him to be a big part of it. Because he's
Mhm.
had a couple of games here and there where it's like, okay, Byron Mullins is here, but then there's been also a couple of games where it's like, isn't that the guy who played 200 games in the NBA and the 7 foot guy and whatever? So he's got to step it up moving forward. And now that Teddy's not here, he's going to really have the chance to do so. So one of the things I'm most interested in seeing is where Byron's game goes from here.
It's up to the team. That's the other thing too, right? For Mike Taylor, it's plays are there. You've tried to drill this throughout training camp. You try to work this throughout. You made roster changes. I mean, everything under the book that a coach and general manager can do has been done, like quite literally. So now it's up to the players to be like, we got to put this all aside. Like before you even worry about the X's and O's, you got to make sure that we are now turning a leaf. This is the this is where our season actually starts, right? And if they can do that, I have a lot more confidence that they'll be able to buy into, what Mike Taylor's been talking about this whole time with, his systems and getting the offense flowing and everything. But it takes buy-in from those guys to put this past them. It's been a very distracting year. This is a huge distraction with Teddy being gone. Needed to be done. It's now happened. And now there's no other excuses because you can't look back on this throughout the season if you lose the next 3-4 games, to the point where, because what are they, 3-5? So you said they had 8 losses last year. Well, that's three more losses away from that. And all those losses came later in the season last year too, right? They had a stronger start than they did this year. So if they can flip flop from last year, great. If not, this might go down, like it will go down as the most disappointing season in young Seabears history, but it might be one that lasts for a long time because the expectations have been sky high for this team.
Yeah, and again, we kind of saw it coming a tiny bit, but at the same time, not really, because I think in our preview show, I said this team's going to win 15 games. I think you said 14 games, right? So this really was unexpected. I think Sea Bears fans have every right to be disappointed. I think a lot of people just assumed, and we played a part in that, right? We were part of that hype
Yeah.
machine. A lot of people assumed that they
Rightly
would be
so.
celebrating. Yeah, yeah. I don't really regret anything that I said about this team because yeah, on paper they're freaking loaded.
Yeah.
They are
And I'm
loaded.
still, like you say, 8 games in. Did I think Teddy Allen was going to get cut 8 games in? Never in a million years. But
Yeah.
you still have 12 games left in the regular season, and it's what you do from here. So this very much could be the adversity overcome that makes, that bonds the team together and puts them into the playoffs, and who knows from there. But right now, championship team, that's not the conversation. Right
No.
now, it's you got to be a playoff team. You're second last in the entire league, last in the conference, and everybody's got a game on you in the Western Conference. Now it's the time to put it together, or it doesn't work out, right? And then everything that we just talked about for sure, and the criticism is warranted. It's warranted right now, but if the season is not over, this could be a very good story still. But it comes down to the players, whether they buy into Mike's system, whether they buy into playing together, and whether they can bond over this and become a greater version of themselves. A lot of times these are the types of situations that bring teams together that can do that are end up becoming capable of doing, unthinkable things. Maybe this is that, but we have to wait and see.
I think one of the most interesting things that Mike said in the presser today was that, last year we had a younger team, an inexperienced team, maybe a team that was just kind of almost just happy to be there and excited to be playing in Winnipeg, this new team and whatever. So it worked with Teddy, right? Everyone was happy with their role and whatever. But this year they have a lot of vets, right? A lot more talent. And it just felt like, these guys it wasn't gelling with Teddy, right? Like it just wasn't the same atmosphere, and I think Teddy's actions, changed because of that, right? Like it just wasn't the same system around him. And Mike Taylor said we did everything we could to make it work with him. I talked to him for hours and hours, and the resources were in place. And but he got fined by the league at one point, suspended by the team at one point. So I'm just to kind of add some more background as to what happened with this Teddy situation and what Mike was saying earlier today. But Yeah, man. I mean, this is why you cover sports, because you never know what's going to happen. And I was saying to you before we started this, I mean, I was away from my phone for 15 minutes this morning. I was doing whatever, and then I grab my phone and I have like 6 messages from people. What happened to the Sea Bears? Why did they cut Teddy? What did Teddy do? Blah 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 blah. And all these people throwing out these different theories and whatever. And I'm like, whoa, what is everyone talking about right now? So that's why I feel like I have to have my phone like glued to my face all day every day, which is terrible and I hate it. But anytime you don't look at it, I feel like I miss something.
Well,
So
that's it.
yeah,
I
crazy
just
day, man.
happened well, just tell me about it. I just happened to catch it. Like, I was on Instagram and caught it, like, basically as it was posted, like, maybe within a minute or 2 because I didn't have any messages yet, and I, like, repost it, just kinda here's the statement, and then my phone's been going off all day. Like, even during this, I could hear it going off during this podcast. It's my camera right now, and I'm hearing it going off and freezing and stuff like that. It's been crazy, and but I think, again, this kind of proves, if I don't think it needed the proof, but the Sea Bears are a legitimate fabric of this sports community, this professional sports community. People care. People are invested. Were invested in Teddy. Are still invested in this team. Might be angry with this team in some phases, and might be angry with Teddy in others. But at the end of the day, this goes to show that this team is for real in terms of its prominence in Winnipeg and its position in Winnipeg. And this is the first real adversity the team has faced as an organization, and they made a bold move. It started with Darius Days when they released Darius Days because he wanted to take NBA opportunities. That was, in my opinion, Mike Taylor, the organization, saying, "We want you to go off, but we're not going to be on the wayside, just kind of here and ready to have you back." Like, there's a sense of confidence in the team here and what the team is and what the team stands for. And with this Teddy one, that has been amplified even more so, right? I mean, if things were 7-1 and they were top, would it happen? I don't know. But at the end of the day, the team would be performing better, and who knows, right? The on court stuff wouldn't be as big of an issue. But what really happened is you had a guy that was scoring near 40 points in a lot of those games, leads the league in scoring, and you still could only muster 3 wins, two of which were at home, all of which were against teams that you're not even going to play in the playoffs. And even that Brampton game, it was on the road, it was close, and Brampton is 2-7 or 2-6 at this time of the year. Yeah, 2-7. They played 9 games. So, a team that a lot of people at the bottom of their power rankings to start the season. So a lot of work to be done here. A lot of moves have been made, but there's still work that needs to be done regardless of who's on the floor.
Do you have a favorite Teddy memory? Whether it was watching him or an interaction with him, do you have a
I
favorite,
feel like
favorite
it's like
Teddy
an in
moment in
memoriam.
this?
I feel like he's dead. Do you have a
No,
favorite
he's not
memory?
dead. Sorry, yeah, it kind of sounds like I made it kind of sound that way. But now, if, assuming he never plays another game in Winnipeg or for the Sea Bears at least, let's because I don't feel people should bury this guy, right? Like again,
No,
because
I
he did a
agree. I
lot of
agree.
great things, and there's the fact that they sold out as many games as they did, and that there's as many people walking around town and see Bears hats, jerseys, and shirts is because of Teddy, right? So
Yeah.
no, it won't get the happy ending, and no, it won't end with him, celebrating with the CEBL championship on Portage and Maine. But I think people should still be really happy about what this guy did for this team and getting it off to the right start, and just what he did for the local basketball community here, right? Just giving them something
Yeah.
to embrace and get excited about. So I
Before I go
feel
to my
it's
favorite,
important for us to highlight some things that
yeah,
Teddy did.
and before I go to that memory, like, I think the one thing that I feel was genuine, because you hear it in every sports. We appreciate. It's kind of like jargon that comes out in these releases, but I do think there was a sense of genuine, like, appreciation, because a lot of the reason why the Sea Bears are where they are is because they had Teddy Allen, right? Like, there was a star, and basketball's a star-driven league, so I do think there was a sense of appreciation. The Sea Bears don't want to do this. Like, you don't want to get rid of a guy unless he's a problem to the team. And that's what happened. Like, obviously you want to hold on to your top scorer. This isn't something you just do on a daily basis. Like, I'm just going to put it on this guy and call it a day. No, it was your leading scorer. So there's definitely a sense of that. And I think there is a sense of appreciation, probably on both sides. I don't know. But favorite memory, I would say, it always just kind of made me laugh when Teddy went in his phase last year where he would sweep the floors. Like, take it from the sweeper kid, because he was so worried that they weren't doing a good enough job that he thought he could do a better job at cleaning up sweat off the floor. And there's the few game winners. Like there's that one shot that will forever be, a part of Sea Bears highlights where he hits the winning shot and then he's just sitting there. And you even in that moment, you can tell he's just kind of embracing it, right? Like he's like not yelling, he's not staring, he's just kind of got this stoic stare on his face, like kind of glancing at the crowd, going nuts. And to me, that was like, that was his moment. That was what he was in Winnipeg. It was his team. He was the man. And I think in that moment was where he was taking it all in. You hit the big shot, you got the big win, you're the star of the game, you're the star of the team, and you're getting all the love. And I do hope he was able to take that away from it too, is embrace those moments while they were there, because they were taken away very quickly. What is
Yeah.
yours?
I think one of my favorite interactions or moments of seeing Teddy in action was actually a practice. And everyone's wearing their typical Sea Bears practice gear, right? Shorts, jersey, all that good stuff. And Teddy is wearing these red plaid pajama pants. And just the scene of just the picture of him in wearing these ridiculous pajama pants, and he's just absolutely just roasting guys on the court, right? He's just kicking everyone's ass on the court, just scoring at will. And he's wearing like these really baggy, like red, silly kind of looking pajama pants, while everyone else is like, wearing the typical basketball attire. It was just a very funny visual, and it just, I don't know, just kind of sums up Teddy. Like he's a different cat, right? Like he doesn't care what people think. He'll do what he wants, says what he wants, and it kind of what makes him him. So, yeah, I think Winnipeg was lucky to have a guy like him here for the year and a half that he was here, and it's unfortunate that it didn't end the way that people kind of thought it would or hoped it would. So, but yeah, we'll definitely stay in tune with Teddy's career moving forward. We'll
For
have
sure.
updates on
I
the
don't think
show
it's the
moving
end of
forward, no
Teddy
matter where
Allen.
he ends
There's
up. No,
Yeah.
absolutely not. He's way too talented for it to be the end. But yeah, just kind of my concern for him though is it kind of slams the NBA door shut. But who knows? He's still, I think he's only 26, maybe 27. Like he's
Yeah, he's
still
26.
still a young
Here's the
guy.
thing. You saw the best of Teddy in Winnipeg, and unfortunately, you saw the worst in terms of outcome, and maybe the worst in terms of the things that happened and transpired on the bench, particularly last night or yesterday during that Father's Day game. But yeah, they did a lot of good for the team, a lot of good for the city. Unfortunately, it's not the ending you want, but it's the ending you got, at least on that chapter. But there's still a whole season to play, and there's a lot of stars on this team that were brought in as stars that can step up. And now that pressure, whatever pressure was on Teddy through all this and whatever he either handled or didn't handle, now falls on the rest of the team. So now it's, you got to put up and do it. Otherwise, this is a lost cause, and this will be one of the biggest disappointments probably in franchise history when it's all said and done. So, Wednesday they play the Sea Bears, or the Sea Bears. They play the Vancouver Bandits. They lost to the Bandits just last week. The Bandits are 7-1. They lead the Western Conference. Edmonton, after yesterday's win, is 6-2. They're in second place, giving themselves bit of a cushion, a one game cushion with the Saskatchewan Rattlers, who will be in town the next game after they play Vancouver. Calgary, because they have the win against Winnipeg, both teams are 3-5, but they take the fourth spot, leaving Winnipeg in fifth. Lot to be proven here, a lot of work to be done, and it all starts on Wednesday. Any final thoughts?
I am very interested to see how this team responds on Wednesday. That's my final thought. I would
It's
not be
yeah,
surprised if they lose by 30 or if they look like a completely different team and they dominate. I would not be surprised either way, but either way, we are really going to learn a lot about this team this coming Wednesday. So that will be a game that you don't want to miss. Or maybe you do want to miss because it could be ugly, but either way it's going to be something to witness for sure.
well, everybody can watch Game Five. I know most people will listen to this after it's over, of the NBA Finals, and see if they can replicate championship basketball
Hey,
when
this
the
is a
Boston Celtics win
CEBL
banner
podcast.
18.
We don't talk NBA here. Sorry, pal.
Yeah,
We
well,
gotta
sorry. On
cut
championship
the
day,
mic. Cut
there's
the
gonna be a little
mics.
bit of a plug.
Show's over. Sorry. No Celtics talk here.
All right. Well, you're gonna hear a lot of it after tonight. So enjoy this last night of 17 championships in Boston. Later tonight, that'll change. Pleasure as always, my friend.
You as well. Go Mavericks.
Thank you for listening to the Target Score Weekly podcast. To stay up to date with Winnipeg Sea Bears and CEBL news, as well as future episode releases, follow Joey and Taylor on Twitter and Instagram at TaylorAllen31 and at Joey Slattery TV. And wherever you're getting the podcast, be sure to subscribe to never miss an episode.